Welcome. I am your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on social media at MMALOTN. This week, we're going over UFC Vegas 49, headlined by a catchweight bout between Islam Makhachev and Bobby Green. 5-round main event here, short notice spot for Bobby Green. And the weigh-ins just wrapped up about an hour ago. I believe we only had one weight miss on the scale, one skeptical one on that Joel Alvarez side, but we're glad to see him make weight. And I can't wait to break down the card a little bit more with you guys later on in this podcast. Yeah, I guess without further ado, I might as well just bring in my guest here, big time guest here. I'm very excited to have my guy on. Been Twitter DMing with him for a couple, I'd say a year, 2 years at this point in time. Love the guy, very sharp dude, one of the best in the game. Co-founder of MMA Junkie, used to work for The Athletic as well. I believe headed the athletic department as well. And now he's just a gambling degenerate like one of us, as well as doing gambling content himself over there in Virginia. Dann Stupp, ladies and gentlemen. Dan, how's it going, brother?
Great. Thanks for the invite. I appreciate you having me on. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. I don't think I've ever seen you really do any video content or anything like that, right? You're usually the guy behind the keyboard and doing up the typing and editing and all that stuff. Am I mistaken as to say that this is one of your first ever like video appearances?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've done so. I was a pretty regular guy on MMA Junkie Radio back in the day with
Yeah.
George Goes and stuff. But and I've done some gambling stuff for our companies, over at Katina Media. But yeah, for the most part, this is kind of my first one, and I guess I should couch it by saying I'm not the sharpest handicapper, but I know who are the sharp handicappers, and I usually pay attention to what they're saying and try to get a little narrative in my head about how I'm going to bet on the fights, and have done fairly well, but definitely not the sharpest mind. But thankfully, we got people like you we can piggyback off of.
I appreciate that, my man. But for sure, you have a ton of knowledge that pertains to the MMA game. And I think that's very valuable, especially when breaking down a card or even maybe picking up on things that the layman may not be able to pick up. But you put in years and years and years into this game. So I very much trust your insight and any type of information you have to lend. But I wouldn't be doing a damn good job of my podcasting world here if I did not kind of address the elephant in the room, which is one of the founding, or not the founding, one of the first OG members at MMA Junkie, leaving the nest officially as of tomorrow. You were responsible for actually hiring our guy, John Morgan, to work for you guys over there at MMA Junkie. And it's hilarious how this timing just worked out in terms of you coming on my show and him actually announcing it himself. I feel like he's one of the last guys over there from the original team of the MMA Junkie squad to actually end up leaving. What are your thoughts on that? Have you spoken to John? Anything you can tell us regarding that?
Yeah, no, we were communicating last night, and catching up. I left Junkie, I guess about 2.5 years ago, not on the greatest of circumstances. We just kind of had a difference of opinion for kind of the direction the site should be heading. I think John kind of reached that breaking point too, but I don't know, just kind of hearing his announcement that he was leaving, it brought back such a rush of memories from the early days of MMA Junkie, when it really was just he and I kind of, trying to run a 24-hour a day news operation where, I didn't want to take a day off because that meant he was responsible for the entire day, and he didn't want to take a day off. And I founded the website with a couple other guys and kind of got it off the ground. Tom Cummins really focused on marketing, and Eric Foster focused on kind of the tech and stuff. And then, we all kind of did a lot of things. But from an editorial standpoint, I mean, John was basically one of the founders of MMA Junkie. He helped me put together kind of our editorial philosophy and kind of how we were going to approach the sport, which was, we cover it fairly, but at the end of the day, we're trying to celebrate the sport. We kind of grew up, in the sport in a different era too, where it was really fighting for credibility and even its life.
Yeah.
There were a lot of times where we worried that, there just wouldn't be a platform for the sport because no one wanted to really be involved in it. And, we look back now and the UFC going from, Versus to Eon TV for prelims to Facebook. But then you start getting into the Fox and the ESPN, and you realize, things are comfortable and safe. But in those early years, you really felt like you had to be an ambassador for the sport on top of being a journalist. There were still a lot of misconceptions about how unsafe the sport was, and not that it's a safe sport, but compared to some other ones, it really wasn't that outlandishly different. So anyway, I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but really, I mean, seeing John leave MMA Junkie, it kind of feels like, George and Goes are still there from MMA Junkie Radio, and Matt Erickson and Mike Bond, who have all played, big parts of the website. But as far as kind of those really early UFC Junkie days, we weren't even MMA Junkie there at the beginning. John is definitely an OG. He's basically a co-founder of MMA Junkie, and obviously I wish him the best. There is nobody that I have ever worked with that loves and feels as much for MMA as that guy does.
No, for sure. It's awesome seeing him at every single UFC card, pretty much, right? No matter if it's in Gdansk, Poland, or whether it's just up the street from him in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's awesome to actually see him be out there, and I can't wait to hear what he has coming up for him. I'm pretty sure he's going to announce it in the next couple of days as well, so that's pretty good. I wanted to put attention to it because I just feel it's not being talked enough about on the timeline or anything like that. Like, I definitely put him up there as one of the best journalists out there. Like him, Ariel Helwani, all those guys are Chuck Mindenhall, like all those guys are the top of the game. And I feel like it should be getting a little bit more coverage. But then again, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, Dan. So I'm sure if it wasn't for other things going on, he'd probably be getting that shine.
Yeah, if we didn't have World War III starting, we could pay a little more attention to the light shadow over there. But no, I mean, I should say the covering this sport is a grind. And those first 10 years of covering MMA, like it was wonderful in a lot of ways, and it kind of ruined me in a lot of ways. It makes you a very jaded person, and you throw on traveling 20 or 30 times a year, living out of a suitcase. I mean, it will make you the worst version of yourself. And the fact that it makes John the best version of himself just blows my mind. This guy is meant for this job. So hopefully we see him, somewhere where he can keep doing what he's been doing.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see where he lands as well, but I'm sure he'll definitely thrive in that position as well. All right, Dan, we are here to break down UFC Vegas 49. Obviously, the weigh-ins just wrapped up. We only had one weight miss on the scale, which was Rong Zhu. We'll obviously talk about that fight once we get up there. I'm interested to hear, since you have been around the game for as long as you have, is there one like weigh-in moment that kind of sticks out to you the most, whether it's a fighter missing weight or if it's one weigh-in that was super like anticipated? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
There is nothing that compares to Elite XC weigh-ins from back in the day, where it was just, it was a disaster. You had Kimbo and his entourages. I remember the one with Kimbo and Ken Shamrock, who they didn't even end up fighting. It was a Petrosyan fight.
Yeah.
But it was just so staged and so over the top, and Ken was trying so hard, and poor Kimbo looked lost to kind of what was going on. He knew he was supposed to be the tough guy, and he was like, wait, dudes aren't supposed to be shoving me in the back, but no, I just kind of those early Elite XC ones, some of the other small organizations that, kind of came and went, like it was madness. But, obviously you can think of the Gina Carano towel drop one too, if you really want to get into.
I'm sure most of the fanboys remember that one.
I say that partially as a pervert, but I mainly say it because, that was time where I had other fighters and media members hitting me up like, hey, were you at the weigh-ins? Did you snap any photos? What is wrong with you? And you just, thankfully, MMA, there's a lot of kind of weirdness and ugliness in this sport, and there are a lot of perverts in this sport. So the weigh-ins kind of, men and women, it really brings out kind of the creep in a lot of people.
For sure. All right, let's get to the card here. The first fight we have coming up is Victor Altamirano coming in at 123 pounds. He's taking on Carlos Hernandez, who's coming in at 125 pounds. In terms of odds, we currently have minus 145 on Hernandez, who's been taking some action throughout this week, buffing him up to the minus 145 line. Obviously, the return on Victor is about plus 125. I'm never a fan of when the UFC does this, is when they put two guys together that are just coming off the Contender Series or just coming off the Ultimate Fighter. Like, I get it. When they have the Ultimate Fighter finale shows, I don't mind them putting guys that were on the show that didn't make it to the finals together. I get it. But their next fight, or, if they're not fighting on an Ultimate Fighter finale, what's the point of putting them together? There's a reason you guys had them on that show. Now you have them in the UFC. At least have them fight somebody who's already in the UFC, at least has one fight in the UFC, so we can be like, okay, this guy doesn't have the UFC jitters or whatever we like to call it when they come into the UFC. But still, a very fun fight here between two guys that I think should be able to throw down and give us an entertaining fight. Victor Altamirano has a Taekwondo background, I should say, sorry. It likes to kind of just kick at range, let his hands go every now and then. But the one flaw in his game that I found was that his takedown defense is just not the greatest. More often than not, you see him on his back. And I think that's where Carlos Hernandez will be able to get him more often than not. And then even in the striking range, I think Hernandez should be able to hold his own. His only issue is that he accepts the back foot a little bit too much. He allows his opponent to kind of dictate the pace on the feet. But there's a reason he has a solid record the way that he does, because even on his back foot, it seems like he's almost pulling his opponents into his strikes so that he can kind of counter forward, pivot off, and then get back into range, but ultimately continuously just start moving backwards. Optically speaking, doesn't look good to the judges, but I think with that takedown in his back pocket, he could potentially sway the judges in his favor with the takedown here or there. He might not be able to control Altamirano the most on the ground here, but I do think that that will look good to the judges, getting the takedowns and then having the striking relatively competitive. I think that's why the line is starting to move towards the Hernandez side. People are starting to see the same thing there. I am taking him to win. There's just a lot of question marks I have about both guys still, which is why ultimately I'll be staying away from this fight. They both look great on the scale, not to mention Altamirano came in 2 pounds under. How often do you see somebody actually take those extra poundages just to be safe? But I still do like Hernandez in the spot. How about yourself?
I'm actually on the other side of it, kind of just as a general rule. I really like kind of small underdogs, betting MMA. I think a lot of times you have kind of a 50-50 fight that, the odds maker is open with a small favorite, and then that guy kind of gets bet up a bit. I think that's a kind of what we're seeing a bit here. Like you said, though, it's hard to really make much of this fight. You have two guys who came through the Contender Series, but didn't necessarily look, fantastic during it. It almost feels like this is kind of another audition fight. And we were also used to guys winning, earning their contracts off big knockouts and stunning submissions, not a couple of split decisions,
Weird, right?
Yeah, it's hard to get excited for it, and like you said, just match him up with a non-contender guy, and then, you can kind of change the whole narrative. I think the guy who wins this fight really isn't going to do much to kind of help himself except kind of keep a job. But anyway, I think Altamirano kind of with a better gas tank, like I said, for the most part, I see it as a 50-50 fight. So I'm going to lean toward the plus money, but I could also see this just going to the decision, first fight of the night, kind of the jitters, the guys feeling each other out. We've seen them go to decisions on the Contender Series. It's still pretty chalky. I think it was -150 last I saw. So I'm not sure there's really any value there. So I don't know, probably dog or pass situation for me.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the fight goes to decision. I think that is a damn good spot here. Both guys, I think that the only way we see a finish is an Altamirano submission. Outside of that, I think that neither guy hits with a ton of power or a ton of finesse, which should make this fight go the full 15 minutes. Yeah, I do like that angle as well. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got short notice Ramiz Brahimaj coming in at 170.5 pounds. Michael Gillmore going down to 170 pounds as well. He weighs in right on the nose as well. In terms of odds, we got heavy chalk on the Brahimaj side, -400 for him, +300 the return on Michael Gillmore. I'll let you lead this one off, Dan. How do you feel like this match will go down?
I mean, I think it's lined, pretty well. I don't like to trash fighters, and in the early days of MMA Junkie, a big thing with MMA was no fighter bashing because it just seemed like to get out. So this isn't fighter bashing, but I just feel like Gillmore isn't a good fighter. He's never really beat anybody who was kind of worth a damn. He wasn't good on tough, wasn't good in his first UFC fight. He could connect with some strikes, and I don't think he has to be too scared of maybe a takedown, or he does have to be scared of the takedown. He's 34 years old. I don't see a whole lot of room for movement here. The thing that stuck out to me, again, I really jump into the numbers to see if there's something interesting there. And Brahimaj winning inside the distance is -150, which, kind of intrigues me, but there's also him winning via sub -105, where I feel like if you're going to pick him, why pick inside the distance when every one of his wins have been by submission? So, I say that, of course, you play him by sub and he gets his first knockout. But, what are you going to do? I mean, if you're looking for a way to play this fight, which is obviously very chalky, I think him winning by sub for me would be the only way to go about it.
I have a bad taste in my mouth for picking a specific method of victory strictly due to the Tyron Woodley and Darren Till fight, where I picked Tyron Woodley by knockout, and then he goes out there and pulls off his first submission in the UFC. Dark stroke, nonetheless. God damn, that was one of the more bitter pills to swallow there. But yeah, I am in agreement with you here. I think Ramirez goes out there and does what he needs to do to get the win. Obviously, fell short in his last appearance back in January against the veteran Court McGee, but fortunately here, he gets to try to right that wrong a month later. I think it was Bilal Muhammad on somebody's interview, half the battle, shout out to Dan Levy, had said that Ramirez was very much broken up after that fight and was very much down on himself. And Bilal was trying to instill that motivation, encourage him to be like, hey, you still got a shot to save your UFC career. Whenever you get that next opportunity, let's go out there and get it done. And you got to believe he's going to come in with the fire here against Michael Gillmore, who, like you said, we're trying to be as nice to these fighters as possible. This guy, luckily, has gotten 2 UFC fights, and that will likely be it for this guy, because I think he's really going to falter under the pressure of some of these much better fighters that he's going up against. I think it's really because he did that short notice thing on Ultimate Fighter for the UFC as to why he's getting these cracks, even after getting finished by Gilbert Urbina in the first round of the Ultimate Fighter there. But again, the favor is over. Ramiz Brahimaj goes out there, gets the submission.
As a favor, we'll let you go get beat up.
Exactly. We'll give you a half a paycheck, and you can just go get choked out by this guy twice. But we'll see how it goes down. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Alejandro Perez weighing in at 144.5 pounds. He's going up against Jonathan Martinez, who came in at 144 pounds. In terms of odds, we got minus 275 on Martinez, plus 220 the return on Alejandro Perez. Now, earlier this week, it was told that this fight was originally scheduled at bantamweight, now at featherweight. I thought that it was the Martinez side, because we know Martinez has had some issues with the scale over his last couple fights, even had to pull out of one, I believe on weigh-in day, if I'm not mistaken. But turns out that it was the Alejandro Perez side of things that wanted to get this fight up to 145 pounds, which I found interesting. This is his second fight back from that extended layoff that he had. Obviously, he was able to pick up a win in that comeback fight against Johnny Eduardo. 40-something-year-old Johnny Eduardo, still no idea why he decided to come back after his own extended layoff. But Alejandro Perez started slow in that fight, managed to get the fight to the ground in the second round, and then eventually found that beautiful armbar from that crucifix position, something we don't see every day in MMA. So shout out to him for that finesse of a finish. But here, I think he's completely outmatched against Jonathan Martinez, who a lot of people are saying that his issue is his durability, like get knocked out. But when we go over his record, he only got finished by Davy Grant, right? Or at least by knockout by Davy Grant. So I think people just have that fresh in their mind. So they're like, okay, this guy's chinny now. But I think if he's able to establish that range, able to establish his movement and footwork as we know him for, he should go out there and style on Alejandro Perez and look all of that minus 275 that he's currently sitting at. So I don't mind Martinez here. Don't even mind chucking him into a parlay either. But I think if you're looking to bet him and try to get the best price possible, taking him to win by decision at plus 120 is not too bad of a gamble. My only concern for that would be, why did Perez decide to push this fight up to 145 pounds? And is that going to affect his durability in this fight? Maybe it's an injury, maybe, bad weight cut, whatever it may be. That's my only concern as to, potentially not playing that Martinez by decision line. But Martinez should roll here. Obviously, well coached up there at Factory X with our guy, Mark Montoya. And I think that they're going to put together a very good game plan to dispatch of the veteran Alejandro Perez, who I've always felt is underrated, but I feel like he's just going to be outmatched in this fight. Martinez is just too good, especially when he gets into his groove. How do you feel about this matchup, Dan?
Yeah, I really can't get over the weight thing. I know we've got guys who, we kind of expect them to move to miss weight, or they kind of go about it in a calculated way, ahead of time, and we know they're going to come in heavy. I don't think this was a calculated play on Perez's part. I think something obviously went wrong. Whether it was an injury or just, body shutting down or whatever it was. But I mean, whatever it is, it doesn't bode well for him. If anything, I think it bodes extremely well for Martinez, who I think has struggled a bit, to get down to the limit. And knowing that, I just feel like that's such a huge mental issue you're taking off him, with the extra weight. And I don't think, I guess you could worry that, well, may mean that my opponent has an advantage. But again, he's not the type of guy who plays that game. So, for that reason that, I was leaning obviously Martinez anyway. But, with the weight stuff, it's hard for me to get beyond that. I actually kind of like him inside the distance at plus 200. I think that's a good way to go about it. Perez has some skills, but I think the main one's just kind of durability. Yeah. So there's part of me, initially I was looking at this as, well, maybe it doesn't go to the decision, if he's tired, if something's going on, but I don't think it necessarily bodes well for Perez in any of those situations, which kind of made me lean toward Martinez inside the distance. So, I can understand the rationale of picking him decision, just, with the weight stuff and kind of those question marks. And I love a big plus number. So I'm a sucker for those.
Hopefully you get to catch it this week, and we'll see how that goes for you, my brother. All right, let's move on to the next one here. A fight that's been talked about for the last couple months because it was scheduled, I believe, for back in November. We got Terrence McKinney weighing in at 156 pounds. On the flip side, we got Ferris Ziam weighing in at 155 pounds. In terms of odds, we currently have, I believe, minus 115 for Ferris and minus 105 for Terrence McKinney. Seems to be a pretty easy fight to break down in terms of, one guy wrestler, Terrence McKinney, even going to the extent of saying he wants to challenge Khamzat Chimaev to a wrestling match. Might be biting off a little bit more than he can chew there, but maybe that American wrestling will come through for him. And then on the flip side with Ferris, solid kickboxer, really likes to use the range and distance and kind of let his kicks and combinations go from there. But the bet that I was originally looking at when they were first scheduled to fight each other was either the under 2.5 or the fight doesn't go to decision, which is currently now sitting at, let me just get the accurate number, because last time I looked, it was minus 185. Fight doesn't go to decision up to minus 225 now. Under 2.5 is closer to that minus 175 range, depending on the bookie that you're using, of course. My only concern is, if McKinney does start to slow down, as we've seen him slow down, obviously Sean Woodson was able to send his head into orbit with that flying knee on the Contender Series. But on the Ferris side, if he plays it a little bit too safe, a little bit too calculated, and doesn't go for the kill in the second or third rounds, even with McKinney slowing down, that's what's kind of scaring me off that fight doesn't go to decision line anymore. But even with the prediction that I have here, which is McKinney round 1, I think he gets this guy to the ground, and I think he smashes him from on top. That would cash the fight, doesn't go to decision. But I wouldn't mind taking a little bit of a chance here on McKinney to win in round 1, which is currently sitting around plus 350. A little bit of a gamble there, but the majority of his wins coming in that first round. The guy has tremendous power when he's able to, posture up from full guard. Dan, you've been around the sport for a long time. Not often do we see somebody be able to knock anybody out from that full guard position. The last one that comes to mind is Curtis Blades elbowing Alistair Overeem's head into oblivion over and over again from that full guard. But Terrence McKinney, with his lanky frame and the way he's able to generate power from those spots, can just absolutely devastate his opponents on the ground. In terms of his striking, I think he's a little bit limited outside of he has a decent cross down the middle and a sneaky head kick that he's been able to knock out a couple people with. I'd be surprised if Ziam gets lulled into one of those, but I do think that we'll see McKinney land the takedown here, and then from there he should be able to dominate from on top, eventually finding that finish. Do you see this fight any differently? How do you see this one going down?
Not really. You may have kind of talked me into playing the round 1, because kind of the way I was going about it was, McKinney, last I saw, I think the best I could see, well, I'm looking at it now, plus 105, plus 108 looks like the best you're going to get. It's kind of hard to get excited about that. So I was looking inside the distance at like plus 190, plus 200. I just don't see him winning unless he probably wins inside the distance. I could see him start giving away the second and third round. Like you say, he just gets a little tired. And so if I'm going to play McKinney, it was probably inside the distance. But honestly, the more I think about it and kind of what you said, I really don't even like his chances beyond round 1. So that may be the play. And honestly, I'm surprised that's not, a little chalkier, that they, didn't take into account kind of the recent string of wins. I don't think there's kind of any reason to think that if he keeps winning or wins this fight, it's not going to look like the other recent ones that he did quickly.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't have an official play on it yet, but I likely will go out there and try to take advantage of that plus 350. Hopefully get a better line on Pinnacle once Pinnacle drops them as well, because I love me some Pinnacle, Dan. If you don't know, I already know. Probably one of the best sports books north of the border as well. So for anybody who's in Canada, make sure you guys check out Pinnacle. Probably one of the best lines you'll get out there. All right. Let's move on to the next fight here. We got a women's featherweight scrap between Josie and Nunes, who weighed in at 145.5 pounds, and short notice Ramona Pascual weighing in at 146 pounds. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 220 for Nunes and plus 180 the return from Ramona Pascual. Dan, I'll let you kick this one off, brother. How do you think this one goes down?
Yeah, it's just a weird fight. I'm not real sure kind of what to expect out of Pascual. I was trying to dig up a little on her because I don't even really remember, I didn't even know what she looked like, basically. I wanted to check it out. And then it looked like, kind of the people that she's fought with the best records were 4-5 and 2-0. But she does look strong. She looks big. She looks sturdy. I think she's gotten better. I saw one of her fights from 4 or 5 years ago and definitely looked a little rigid, and more recently looks a little more fluid. I think she's 33, so it's hard to imagine she's going to get a whole lot better at this point in her career. I think the biggest thing that kind of jumped out at this is a over under of a round and a half for a women's fight, which, I think usually I would automatically jump to something like this. It's like, how many times do we have to keep telling ourselves this is going to be the one to go under, and then you see a 3-round fight? But there's just so many unknowns here. I know Nunes has KO power and could finish quickly. She's got a lot of stoppages, but it's hard to know because there's so many. We really don't know how Pascual is going to, deal with adversity or even fighting, kind of on this stage. It's a smaller UFC event, but obviously it's still a big deal to fight in the UFC. So I don't know, I would lean towards the favorite, maybe Nunes inside the distance, but those prices are so high at chalky numbers. So, I'll probably just steer clear of it and really try to, look like a genius for not getting sucked into playing the over round and a half.
You're absolutely right that we don't often see the 1.5 total stuck on a women's MMA fight, right? More often than not, that's reserved for a Cyborg or Amanda Nunes. But we got a Josie and Nunes here. I'm not sure if she'll be able to live up to the Nunes name in this spot. But with Ramona Pascual, it's clear she needs to get this fight to the ground. We've seen it work in a couple of her past fights, but the level of competition, like you had noted, very skeptical, very sketchy. Is she going to be able to do that against a girl like Josie and Nunes, who even her regional record and level of competition on the regional scene very sketchy itself? But one thing is for sure with Nunes, she can crack, right? I believe she has 8 victories, 7 of them coming via knockout. Obviously, most recently against Bea Malecki back in August, a fight that I was actually live for, and seeing her crack Bea Malecki like that was absolutely insane to see Malecki go down like a ton of bricks at the way that she did. She had a huge reach advantage in that fight, but just could not establish it, with Nunes just hard-nosing it the entire way, getting right into her face, getting into the pocket, and letting those strikes go. Pascual, on the other hand, I don't think she's ever been hit by a girl like Nunes before, so that's kind of my concern, is if she gets dinged on the in the head, how is she going to react? Is she going to be able to is she going to shoot a reactionary takedown, which might work here because Nunes' takedown defense doesn't look the greatest either. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, this look like Nunes almost finishing her on the feet, but Pascual pulls off a takedown and then starts to slow the fight down again, which is why I was kind of tinkering with that over 1.5 as well, because if Pascual is successful at all in this fight, she's going to get the grappling going and she's going to be able to slow this fight down. But will it be long enough for 7.5 minutes, though? That's the concern, because it seems like with Nunes, it might only take one, and Ramona could go down like a ton of bricks, just like Bea Malecki did back in August. So big question marks here from both sides. I'm seeing a couple people on Twitter calling her Romano Medov or something, Romano Medov, hoping that she comes out with the wrestling singlet, which she should. I just don't have the cojones to go out there and bet that plus money on her. If I were to take the shot, I'd assume that she wins this fight via decision just by using her grappling and just kind of maintaining that top position. And that line is currently sticking at plus 360, plus 400, depending on the spot you're looking at. I think that would be the best prop to take. Otherwise, taking Nunes to win inside the distance has worked out 7 out of 8 times. I think it probably could work out here as well with against Pascual. Nunes via knockout currently sitting at minus 115 or plus 100, depending on where you're looking at. As a prediction, I'm going to go with the Pascual side. I think we see her bring out that wrestling singlet, drag this fight to the ground. The only bet that I'm kind of intrigued by is the over 1.5 at minus 140, minus 135. But
you're going to get sucked into it. You can't.
I don't know, Dan. I'm trying my best not to. As of right now, I only have 3 official bets. And I don't know if I want to make any more. We'll talk about them when we get to those fights as well. But goddamn, I hope I don't get sucked into this over 1.5. All right. Let's move on to the prelim headliner here. This is where we have the lone weight miss on the card. We have Rong coming in at 160 pounds. You can even see it from the moment that they show him on camera, starting to walk towards the scale, just like it just looks like a kid whose mom just told him that they can't have candy. Like the guy just looked horrible walking up to the scales, knew he was going to miss weight. Even I believe he even asked if he could take his shorts off. Like that's going to make a goddamn difference, especially when you're 4 pounds over. But he misses weight. Ignacio Bahamondes comes in at 154.5, I believe. He's actually been guilty of missing weight in the past. I believe it was against John McDessie, but it seems he's really rectified those issues. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 195 now for Bahamondes and plus 165 the return on Rong. Rong, I believe he's aligned himself down there at American Top Team. Solid guys, solid training camp over there, but I wonder how much they're really going to be able to do for his overall game. Came out flat in his UFC debut against Rodrigo Vargas, where he pooped the bed as a minus 250 favorite that night, if I'm not mistaken. And then in his next fight, takes on short notice Brandon Jenkins and absolutely puts a beating on him, eventually finishing him with mere seconds left in that third round. From his regional tape, seemed like a power puncher, right? We go through his record, has a lot of knockout victories, but another big kind of red flag is just level of competition there is not the greatest. It kind of just, makes you wonder how he's really going to work out in the UFC once he starts taking these steps up in competition. And I think that Ignacio Bahamondes is a legitimate step up in competition. Bahamondes obviously himself fell flat in his UFC debut against veteran John McDessie. But the one thing that I liked from that fight, even after getting cracked in round 1, he continued to bring the heat in round 2 and 3. He was not deterred by losing that first round. And even though he still ended up losing a decision that night, I still like the fact that he went out there and landed 75 significant strikes over the next 10 minutes, going to show that this guy is a fighter, man. He likes to go out there, he likes to throw volume, and he will not be deterred by anything or any success that his opponent has early. Very simple for Zhu Rong here. I don't think he can match the pace of Ignacio. So unless he wants to kind of just bite down on the mouthpiece and try to knock out Ignacio, because Ignacio, that is one of his flaws. He is very hittable. Other than that, I think Rong needs to drag this fight to the ground. But from the takedown defense that we've been seeing from Ignacio, I'm pretty much sold that it's going to be very difficult for Rong to actually drag this fight to the ground. I believe Roosevelt Roberts went 0 of 12. Whoa. I apologize. Roosevelt Roberts went 0 of 12 on takedown attempts against Ignacio Bahamondes. And I'd be surprised if Rong actually has more success than what Roosevelt was trying to get going there. Outside of Rong rocking him and hurting him on the feet, I just think he's going to get out volume. I think he's going to get punished with the output, with the strikes, the combinations. It all looks so fluid and so good from the Bahamondes side. I do like Bahamondes here a decent amount. The only thing is just his hitability and his potential of getting his chin cracked. He's never actually been finished by knockout, which is interesting to note, especially with how much he gets hit. But that is a bit of a concern here. I'd still go Bahamondes by decision, which is currently sitting at plus 165. And with the obvious weight miss here from Rong, let's see how that actually impacts his durability in this fight. I'm not sure how much, maybe you can even speak on this. Do you feel as though that is kind of a big red flag and could impact his durability? And then ultimately let me know how you see this fight going down and who wins.
No, it's funny you asked that. I was going to say, I was leaning Bahamondes via decision or maybe the over 2.5, even though that's a little chalky too. But I feel like kind of that whole narrative of both of these guys are durable. I think Bahamondes has the advantage, but Zhu is durable enough, but kind of with that weight miss, it's so hard to tell. Like you say, he looks so dejected. I don't know, if some guys really feel like that's a shameful thing, and he kind of had that look on his face, like, so maybe that's in his head. So I don't know. I feel like, I was kind of stretching a bit, looking for a way to play this to go to decision, either, fight winning by decision or over 2.5. But with that weight miss and just not knowing how that's going to affect, I mean, he's a really young guy too, and I know some guys take that as such a shameful thing when they hear all these veterans talking about like, that's your one job and stuff. So again, I'm probably getting a little into the weeds reading into this, but kind of being on the fence to begin with. And now with the weight miss, it's such a red flag. I just kind of want to stay away from it.
Yeah, in terms of an actual prediction, are you still on the Bahamondes side?
Yeah, I was kind of before, and now with the weight miss on top of it, definitely leaning toward him. I don't know if there's much value in betting him straight up, so you try to find another way to do it. And I feel like kind of any idea you had for how he's going to win kind of goes out the window with the weight miss.
Yeah, that's always difficult. Again, we'll speak about it in the main event as well. In terms of method of victories, is very difficult in certain fights that you think is going to be inside the distance, but could obviously go the full 15 or 25 minutes as well. All right,
Well, it's
that's a
too when you bet them to win inside the distance and they dominate for 15 minutes, 2 or 3 times, the rest in there ready to pull off, backs
yeah.
up. Like it seems like every time I bet a distance, I know it's selective memory, but man, it burns.
Oh no, I know exactly what you mean. There's always those close. Whether you're betting an under, if fight doesn't go to decision, by decision, whatever it is, there's always those moments where it's like, oh, I want just throw two more punches, throw two more punches. That's all you need. All right. That is a wrap on the prelims. Shout out to the 50 live viewers that we currently have as well. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe below. Show my guy Dan Stupp some love as well. I know he's usually the guy behind the scenes, but trust me, he has a wealth of knowledge, as you guys can already see, and he has a ton to offer as well in terms of useful information. So please do hit my guy with the follow. Link to his Twitter page is in the description below. Show him some love. All right. Let's move on to the main card. We have a middleweight scrap starting off the card here. We got Arman Petrosyan going up against Gregory Rodrigues. They both weighed in at 186 pounds. In terms of odds, we currently have minus 155 on Hobocop, and we got plus 135 on Petrosyan. Fun fight here, man. I'm very much looking forward to this fight. I actually have Arman Petrosyan as my dog of the night play here. I got on him at plus 150. Now the line is obviously moving down to plus 135. Still don't mind it there, man. Watching his regional tape, I'm very impressed with what I see, especially his ability to deal with guys that are trying to take the fight into a grapple-heavy scenario, right? He might give up his back every now and then trying to break the lock of his opponents, but he gets out, gets back into open space, and then starts to let his hands go. His cardio looks good, especially for somebody who defensively grapples as much as he does, and then still to hold that power later on into a fight. It's very promising against the guy in a Robocop. I keep wanting to say Hobocop because the R in Brazilian and Portuguese and all that stuff. So I'll try to stay away from that. But with Robocop, we've seen that. We saw it in the Junior Park fight, right? Like we've seen in past fights as well. When he's forced to exert a lot of energy, his cardio does not look the greatest. And I feel as though this is a fight where he's going to have to exert a lot of energy, trying to get Arman Petrosyan to the ground and start to dominate with his Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But we both know this, Dan. When you grapple as much as Robocop is going to be looking to grapple here, that's how you exert the most energy in MMA in an MMA fight. I see people kind of pointing to the Dushko Todorovic fight saying, oh, he doesn't have bad cardio, but that's a fight that he was able to kind of fight at his pace. He was able to keep it in the striking. He knew that there wasn't much, coming back from Dushko Todorovic. So he's kind of just able to just set a pace, just keep walking forward, keep throwing strikes, keep walking forward, keep throwing strikes. And he was able to pull that fight out via decision. Here, though, if he tries to pull off a similar thing, I think he's taking a canvas snap. I don't think he can trade in the pocket with Arman Petrosyan here. And I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, you might be getting him confused with the kickboxer Arman Petrosyan. No, I am not. I'm watching his tape. I'm watching his past fights. That's where I'm getting this information from. And his striking looks amazing. The guy throws in combinations. He's very active with his leg kicks, which is something I like. He's disciplined, but also tactical in a very good way. And what I mean by that is like he doesn't wait too long for his openings. He creates openings, whether it's with the leg kick, whether it's with a combination, and then eventually he finds that chin of his opponents and puts them down. Robocop, on the other hand, we're hearing about his jiu-jitsu accolades. We keep hearing about that stuff, but when I go back and watch the tape, I'm not super impressed with what I've been seeing. Sure, you get the back of Junior Park, I believe, for a couple minutes, but not able to finish a submission at all, or even get close to a submission there. And even in the LFA scene before coming to the UFC, fighting Lil Ol Almatavo, very small dude at that weight class, being able to get back to his feet with relative ease, that's a big red flag for me as well. Where's that jiu-jitsu? He might showcase it here, don't get me wrong, but knowing that he's working with high-level wrestlers, this is Petrosyan I'm talking about, knowing that he's working with high-level wrestlers, I feel as though he's going to be able to stop most of the takedown attempts and then keep this fight on the feet, get back to his feet, and then get back to work with his striking. Last thing I would say about this fight, and then I'll bring it on over to you, Dan. It kind of reminds me of Derek Brunson versus Jared Cannonier, but I think that RoboCop has much better striking than Derek Brunson. So that's kind of where the difference is there. But both of them needing to get the fight to the ground to have success. Whereas Jared Cannonier and Petrosyan, from what I've been seeing, they have great takedown defense and they have great get-ups. And that's all I need to see, especially when they have the knockout power advantage as well. So I'm going Petrosyan. Petrosyan by knockout plus 200. I think that's a damn good spot as well. Could RoboCop slap on a submission? It's possible. And at plus 450, not a bad hedge opportunity as well. If you're a little bit too scared that he will actually get the takedown here. But I'm on the Petrosyan side. I think he has a super fantastic debut here. Knocks out RoboCop in the second round. And yeah, I think it's off to the races after that. What do you make of these two guys, and how do you think this goes down?
I'm just sitting here for the past 5 minutes shaking my head. Yeah, because I think you nailed it. I think this fight has a huge potential for fireworks. I'm really excited for this one. I could see both guys kind of getting a little wild too, just feeding it. I think the crowd's going to be into it. I think it's a good spot on the card where people are going to want to see some fireworks. Obviously, I like I've said, I like plus money. I like small dogs. I feel like this is pretty close to a 50-50 fight, and getting any plus money is great. Obviously, you got a better line than people can get now. And if you bet it a few days before that, you'd get an even better line. So, I like the ones where, people are sleeping on them and the small underdog gets bet up, and here, kind of a bigger underdog's now a smaller underdog. But I still think there's a lot of value there. Kind of any of the plays, the over goes to decisions, pretty chalky. But I like Petrosyan straight up, and I think in the small cage too, we're going to see a lot of fireworks here.
I like it. And just further to your point about small underdogs, shout out to betmma.tips, great tracking website, probably one of the best sites that I use. They have a statistic out there that shows the performance of people from, big favorites, slight underdogs, and big underdogs. The most profitable range is the slight underdog, and the most, where people take the most losses is a slight favorite. I'm not saying it is, important in regards to this fight specifically, but just as a general rule of thumb, most people lose money on that slight favorite. Most people make money on the slight underdog. We'll see if this weekend as well we can, bring further proof to that statistic and see our guy Arman Petrosyan get his hand raised. All right. Let's move on to the next fight here. Another Arman with an A this time. We got Arman Tsarukyan going up against Joel Alvarez. 156 for Arman Tsarukyan and 156 on the nose for Joel Alvarez on his first attempt with the shorts on, cracks 156 and a half. Never knew underwear could weigh 0.5 pounds, but here we are weighing in at 156 pounds. Joel Alvarez makes the weight. In terms of odds, we got minus 220 for Tsarukyan, plus 180 for Joel Alvarez. Alvarez was hanging closer to plus 270 before the Spanish army came in and invaded that line and absolutely drove it down to plus 180. Very fun fight, very volatile fight, I must say. I am officially picking Alvarez as my pick to win this fight. But I hate myself for even picking against a guy like Tsarukyan, who I've said time and time again, one of the best 155 pounders on the planet. But I think that this could be a very interesting stylistic matchup, given the obvious height advantage for Joel Alvarez, obvious size advantage for Joel Alvarez, and just obvious nastiness advantage. I mean, the guy goes out there and puts absolute crazy shots together. We saw him dispatch of Thiago Moises in a way that nobody was able to do before. We've seen him in there against guys like Benio Dariush and Islam Makhachev, yet nobody's been able to do anything like that to him. And I feel we see a big confidence change from Joel Alvarez from his UFC debut against Damir Ismagulov, who very tough opponent there, and now obviously dispatching of Thiago Moises last time around. But even before that, right, Alexander Yakovlev getting the armbar on him, choking out Joe Duffy, and all of those as big underdogs. And I am guilty of being on the big favorite in the Thiago Moises and the Joe Duffy fights. I think he's finally won my respect. I'm not sure if I'm overreacting to it. I don't know what it is, but I feel as though he goes out there and tries to finish dudes. Now, I understand why people are on the Tsarukyan side. He has the more dependable tools here, which is getting the takedown, grinding him out from on top. He has decent enough striking to possibly stay safe. People don't really like betting on the guy that goes out there and just gets finishes because they're like, what if he doesn't get the finish? Then he's probably screwed. But I feel like they're just not giving enough respect to the guy that's going out there and getting the finish like Joel Alvarez is, right? There's going to be a lot of space for Arman Tsarukyan to cover here to try to get his striking off and then eventually get that takedown. And I could see instances where, Tsarukyan has struggled to keep guys on the mat. And if he is going to struggle to keep a guy like Joel Alvarez on the mat, he will have to deal with that heavy striking style of Alvarez, try to close that distance again, and eventually get the takedown again, maybe desperation takedown, which leaves his neck open to that Joel Alvarez special, which is that guillotine. So I do like the Alvarez side here. Again, I just don't feel good betting against the guy in Arman Petrosyan, who is just so goddamn good himself. But if I was to bet Joel Alvarez, I would take him inside the distance, and that line is currently sitting at plus 330. Even Alvarez by KO is at plus 800. Could see him potentially catching Tsarukyan and then just ground and pounding him. And then on the Tsarukyan side, if you like Tsarukyan, I think Tsarukyan by decision at plus 180 would be the way to go here. Minus 220 in hindsight might seem like a gift if he does go out there and just implement his game plan the way that he normally does. But man, Joel Alvarez is just so goddamn scary, Dad. Am I too high on Joel Alvarez? What are you seeing here?
No, I was actually big on Alvarez too. I mean, I guess I can understand, why he's the underdog, but that price just seems too high, especially with kind of the ways he can win. I think he's got advantages kind of in a small cage. I kind of worried about him, not mentally, but just, but I don't know, seeing him joking about missing weight and stuff. Like, I think he's having a grand old time this week and expects to win. I think he's in a good spot. I think this fight, in a small cage plays well for him. And I think Tsarukyan I feel like he kind of relies on that brute strength. And like you said, kind of with the guillotines and stuff, I think that could actually work against him. So I don't know, it's a fairly close fight, and for plus money, and especially like you said, the plus 300, plus 330 inside the distance. I don't think that's a bad way at all to play that fight.
Yeah, this should tell us a lot about both guys here, especially on the Alvarez side. I hope we do get to see this fight extended a little bit just to see what we're truly getting with Alvarez. But yeah, easily, I got to say that this is the people's main event. A lot of people very much looking forward to this fight. And if I'm not mistaken, I heard some rumblings that there was a good chance that Tsarukyan was not going to accept his fight if Alvarez came in overweight. Thankfully, we're not going to have to find out whether that was true or not because our man made the weight. All right. Let's go on to the next fight here. How we go from Tsarukyan Alvarez to Ji Yoon Kim against Priscilla Cachoeira. I don't know, Dan. I don't know how we ended up here, but here we are. In terms of weight, we got 126 from Kim, 125 from Cachoeira. In terms of odds, we got minus 160 on Kim, plus 140 on Priscilla Cachoeira. The over right now is actually kind of intriguing to me at minus 200. Seems to be a little bit of a steal, especially in a women's MMA fight that will more than likely be taking place on the feet. I get it. Cachoeira has a little bit of knockout power, but I think that Kim moves well enough that she should be able to stifle that knockout power and then just let her kind of pitter-patter striking go. I'm seeing love for Cachoeira out there, and I think a lot of that is instilled from the Molly McCann victory, how she was able to beat Ji Yoon Kim last time around. Pretty much using the type of strategy that Cachoeira is going to use. Move forward, try to close the distance, try to get out some strikes, rinse, repeat, try to find the knockout. But the difference between Molly McCann and Priscilla Cachoeira, McCann's a lot more agile. She likes to move a little bit more. She's a little bit more bouncy on her feet, and she can close that distance a lot better than what Cachoeira will be able to. Cachoeira, flat-footed, marches forward, doesn't really cut off the cage much, and she just wants to go out there and fight exactly what her nickname says, and that's like a zombie. She wants to fight like a zombie girl. Just go out there and try to take your head off. Kim does a decent job in terms of moving well and getting her strikes off from distance. She had a damn good performance against Alexa Grasso as well. Very competitive fight there. But I think that this is a tailor-made matchup for her, not to mention a pink slip matchup for her too, because if she loses this fight, more than likely she finds herself packing in on outside of the UFC. But I do like Kim here to go out there and just pitter-patter from the outside and win this fight via decision. I haven't pulled the trigger on this bet yet, but I think I'm going to. Kim via decision currently sitting at plus 120. pretty much bidding her straight up, right? Cachoeira is very difficult to put away. I'd be surprised if Kim catches her with anything to actually put her on wobbly legs or put her out in this fight. So I'm going to go Kim. Think she wins a cleaner fight while Cachoeira is kind of just throwing at air. The only concern is, optically speaking, it looks good for Cachoeira to be the one moving forward and throwing shots. Hopefully Kim just minds her P's and Q's, lands those straight shots down the middle, continues to move, continues to stay pivoting and getting out of the pocket exchanges, and she should more than likely win this fight. How do you see this one going down?
I see plus money for Cachoeira, for under 2.5, for not go to decision, and I'm trying to find reasons to get there and talk myself into one of those plus money bets. But like you said, I think this fight really does suit Kim well. Cachoeira can hit. I think she's going to be a little quicker to the punch. We've seen some power and durability, but I don't think it's anything that Kim can't really withstand. I just don't think she has those sustained attacks that's really going to kind of put her in trouble. If she could string together, a good volley of shots kind of in the small cage and stuff, maybe that would work to your advantage. But I don't know. I think even if you're leaning toward Cachoeira, the value there is kind of evaporated over the week. You're just not getting a good price anymore. So, yeah, I mean, if you're going to play it and you like Kim, I think Kim via decision is pretty much the only way to go. I think if you're on the other side of it, you're probably just a little too late to really get any value out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree with your take there as well. Like I said, a lot of early money coming in on Priscilla Cachoeira earlier this week. But yeah, that value is more than likely evaporated by this point in time. All right, co-main event time. Misha Cirkunov weighing in at 185.5 pounds. How that man makes that weight, I still don't know. While Dan is currently getting a call, that's currently fine. That's totally fine. We roll with the punches here, Dan. That's
I had silenced everything.
That's the magic of live streaming. No worries, my man. 185.5 for Misha Cirkunov. Second time down to the middleweight division. Wellington Turman coming in at 185 on the nose. In terms of odds, we got minus 120 on Cirkunov, plus 100 on Wellington Turman. And when we saw these guys face off earlier today, you see the obvious size advantage that Misha Cirkunov intended on having when he came down to 185 pounds. I'll say I was very impressed with his last performance, even though he came up on the short end of the stick against Krzysztof Jotko. His cardio looked good, his durability looked good, and he was able to maintain it from minute 1 to minute 15, going for takedowns, trying to get the finish, trying to really just get the W. But Krzysztof Jotko was just a little bit quicker to the punch, a little bit more refined with the striking, and just a step ahead pretty much the entire time. Here against Wellington Turman, though, Turman has shown horrible fight IQ in the past, and it just is something that cannot be overlooked. But I do think that this is going to be one of those circumstances where we're going to get a grappling match between both of these guys. But Cirkunov might just be the stronger guy in this situation, might be able to get the better positions, will get the top position, and then eventually be able to either rain down shots from on top or find a submission at a certain point. The spot that I was kind of looking at was the fight doesn't go to decision, but that's obviously sticking at minus 200, which actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be closer to minus 350, minus 400. So I kind of talking out a turn right there. But my concern there is if they do nullify each other on the ground and this does become a 50-minute grappling match, that is absolutely a possibility. But Misha Cirkunov fights to finish, and that's what I respect about the guy. Wellington Turman might be able to to tangle with him here on the ground, but I think at a certain point we'll see Cirkunov either land some big shots from on top or wrap up an arm triangle choke, whatever it might be. I do think he'll be able to get that finish and bring this on home. So even Cirkunov inside the distance, that is currently sitting at plus 150. I don't think that's a bad look either. But yeah, I'll go with Cirkunov to get his first win in the middleweight division. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth on this fight. I was actually pretty big on Turman earlier in the week, but like you said, I think at weigh-ins it was obvious why Cirkunov dropped a weight class. Like, we get it now. You see that he's the bigger guy. He can use that that advantage. I didn't think that at least physically he didn't look that great the first time he cut. I think this time around he's probably a little more comfortable, and that the comfort kind of at the weight now, the clear size, and like you said, I think Turman doesn't always fight with the smartest IQ. I think you kind of throw all that together in what's basically a 50-50 fight, and it's hard not to go with the small favorite in this one with Cirkunov.
I like it. I like it. The placement on this of this card in the co-main event slot has me kind of scratching my head. I mean, it's obvious you should be going with Joel Alvarez versus Arman Tsarukyan, but apparently the UFC does a ton of research on where their numbers peak at during their cards, and where they should be putting certain fights. So maybe they know something. Maybe they know that people like to go to the bathroom during the third fight on the main card, which is why they put Ji Kim and Priscilla Cachoeira there. Who knows? But they're a multi-billion-dollar company at this point in time. So apparently they're doing something, right? We'll see how that turns out. All right. That brings us to the main event, and reminding the 100 live viewers that we currently have here. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe, and show my guy Dan some love as well. His Twitter account is linked in the description below, so make sure you guys show him some love. Absolute OG of the game, and it is an absolute pleasure to have him on breaking down this card with me. All right. Main event time, 160-pound catch weight. We got Islam Makhachev weighing in right on the nose at 160. Bobby Green weighing in at 158 pounds. Apparently cutting 30-ish pounds over the last week or so to try to make the weight. Absolutely insane. What a G of the game, right? Bobby Green fighting 2 weeks ago against Nasrat Haqparast. Picks up a great victory that night. One of his best in terms of just absolutely butchering his opponent that night, trading in the pocket with him and just landing combinations, really hurting Nasrat Haqparast, not finishing him. But that's Bobby Green, right? It's weird how many in the pocket exchanges we see him over in every single fight, but we never see a finish transpire other than the Ally Quinta fight. And then 8 years to the date, that was the anniversary of 8-year anniversary of the last time he got a finish over James Krause, but that wasn't even a legitimate finish. That was like a low blow. If you guys haven't seen that fight, I would highly recommend going back to see that fight, to see a comical fight there with Bobby Green getting a point taken away from nut shots and then eventually winning via nut shot, which was very, very weird. But either way, great pocket boxer, like I said. Great, he has that Philly shell, likes to roll a lot with his shots, which is why you don't really see him get knocked out. But he doesn't really have to worry about the Philly shell this weekend, because he's going to have to worry about that takedown defense, trying to get those underhooks, trying to stuff the head, whatever it may be, to try to keep this fight on the ground or on the feet. But I think he's going to fail in doing so. So I'm certain Dan is going to be picking Islam Makhachev as well, just as I am. But the real question here, to try to extract some value from this fight, is the over-under, which is currently at 2.5. I took a shot personally at plus 110 on the over at 2.5, as I do think that this fight will be a little bit more harder for Islam Makhachev to find that finish. He will eventually find the finish, I believe, probably in the 4th or 5th round, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to eventually find that. We've seen Bobby Green deal with high-level black belts in the past and survive on the ground, do a good job in terms of staying safe. And I get it. Islam Makhachev is a completely different beast compared to a lot of these guys. But it's not like Makhachev was going out there and, has always been this crazy finish from on top. Like, it took him into the 4th round to beat a guy like Thiago Moises. The Dan Hooker fight, let's not forget, Hooker took that fight on less than a month's notice. I think he was just doing a favor for the UFC that night, finds himself in a Kimura, eventually gets tapped there. Drew Dober finishes him in the 3rd round of that fight. And if anything, I rate Bobby Green a lot better than Drew Dober, especially with their defensive grappling. And then, many fights before that, Nick Lentz, Chris Wade, all these fights that are going the full 15 minutes. And yes, you can but you can also allude to Islam getting better, getting more comfortable in the cage. And now that's why he's probably finding all these finishes. But we can't overlook the defensive grappling game of Bobby Green, which I think is being understated in this spot. So yeah, I do like Makhachev. That's no surprise to anybody here. But where I'm going to plant my flag is the over 2.5. I do like that at plus 110. And I do think that we'll see Islam potentially get the finish later in this fight. I'd be surprised if he gets caught by anything from Bobby Green on the feet. I think he'll be good enough to evade those shots from Bobby Green, eventually get the fight to the ground. But I think it's going to take him some time to break down Bobby Green and eventually get that finish later in this fight. How do you see this one going down?
I broke my golden rule of not betting openers because I got all intrigued after the Bobby Green win and had to jump and place a little bet on him. Which was stupid because now the line's gone up even more if you're backing Bobby here. But
yeah,
like you, I think that one I bet with my heart, and then with my head I bet the over 1.5 at minus 162 when I saw it.
Beautiful.
But yeah, so it was like, this isn't going to be around much longer. I'm getting a gift here. If I'm going to play this fight, maybe this will make up for my dumb, throwing a unit on Bobby Green as soon as it opened because I'm a stupid gambler who likes a good story. But no, I think
I bet a unit on Bobby Green, folks.
Yeah.
I was that guy.
Yeah. But that's a tough thing with MMA betting. And it's tough the way I do it, which is I know I'm not the best technical nuts and bolts guy, but I know people who are. So I like to listen to them talk about fights and kind of, shape my narrative. But, with this one, I probably should have listened a little more closely to people like you who know what you're talking about and don't get super intrigued with Bobby Green here. I wasn't really kind of a believer in Makhachev until he beat up Drew Dober, and that was probably because I had a lot of money on Dober. And when you lose money, you remember stuff, so you don't make those mistakes again. Clearly, I didn't remember it well enough here, but no, I think there's a lot, just the fact that Bobby Green took this fight, he's got some confidence. And I think a lot of guys were beaten ever before they got in the cage, fighting Islam. He's fluid. He's got good defense. It's a small cage. He's going to get taken down, but I don't think he's the type you can just smother for extended periods of times. He's crafty enough. He's clever enough. For me, it's just that race to get to 2.5 or to 7.5 minutes in the fight. And I think he's veteran enough. He's savvy enough. He's got the confidence. I'm confident he can get past a round and a half. Beyond that, my confidence of him actually pulling off the upset starts to wane a little bit. But I do like the over round and a half. And I think, it's clear that Islam's the favorite here. I think, he's going to win obviously more times than he doesn't. But I can't fault you if you think there's a little value in that Bobby Green line, even if there's not a clear path to victory,
Yeah, honestly, I think if you want to get the most juice for your squeeze, you got to go with Bobby Green via TKO. And I know he's not relatively a big finisher, but it's hard to see him winning minutes in this fight. Like if he's able to keep this as a 25-minute kickboxing match, sure, he probably wins this fight, but I'd be mystified if he's able to keep this fight on the feet for longer than 4 minutes or even 3 minutes. But Bobby Green via KO would probably be the way to go. But yeah, I'm glad that we're both on the over here as well. You do have the over 1.5. Do you like the over 2.5 just as much, or what are your thoughts on that?
I was just actually pulling that up to see it's plus money. It looks like you can get a plus 105, plus 115 if you can find it. There's probably still a little value in there, but for me, I wish you could do maybe over 2 rounds. I just feel like by that third round, maybe he starts to find a stride and figure out kind of how to keep him down. But any main event fight, I feel like almost anybody, can drag it out for a round and a half, especially a guy like Bobby Green. But
for sure,
2.5, I'd be a little more hesitant.
I wish I went with the 1.5 as well when it was still sticking around there. But now at 2.5, I'll still take it. I'll take that small plus money gamble, and hopefully it plays off this time around. All right. That is a wrap on the predictions and breakdowns. The last thing we like to do on the show is give the lock of the night play, or the most confident play that me and Dan have on the card. I have no lock of the night play on this card. This is a very sketchy card from a betting perspective. My biggest play right now is 1.5 on Armin Petrosyan at plus 151. Besides that, I have 1 unit on Jonathan Martinez plus Ignacio Bahamondes parlay. That's also for plus 110. And then I have a unit on the over 2.5 on Islam Makhachev and Bobby Green at plus 110 as well. I got no lock, but if I were to give you guys one, the one that I feel most confident about will probably be Bahamondes and Martinez parlay, roughly around even money. If you can get that, I think that's a decent spot. I might add to that. I might add another unit to that just because, again, it is probably the one that I feel best about. And with the weight miss here from Rong kind of gives me a little bit more confidence on the Ignacio side. I was thinking of playing the decision prop for Ignacio, but I could see the finish transpire here as well, in case Rong did leave a lot of him in that sauna and on the scale. Dan, what do you like the most?
I like that over 1.5 in the main event, but obviously that's long gone. People aren't going to get that. Honestly, I think there's a lot of value in McKinney inside the distance. The fact that they're giving you basically twice the return betting him straight up versus inside the distance. I love when there's discrepancies like that, when there's a big discrepancy between like over 2.5 rounds and goes to decision. Where they give you So I think there's some value there. I really like your in the first round play too. I think there's a lot of value there. I think the other one that stuck out to me was Alvarez. I just think, at that dog money, I think he wins that enough to make that a good long-term bet. If you could bet that 100 times, I think you're going to come out ahead more often than not. And I just don't think you find I feel like it's close to a 50-50 fight, and it's hard to find plus 80. And I know a lot of that some of the value is gone already, but I think that's a great price if you're looking for, some dog money.
There you go. It seems like there's going to be a lot of dogs barking on this card. Hopefully, it's not Perez or Rong, but we'll see how that goes down. Dan, honestly, I appreciate you taking out time and doing this, breaking down the card with me. I had a ton of fun. Hope you did as well. I'll give you the platform one last time if there's anything you want to plug or say, and then I'll wrap this thing up on the back end.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, DANNSTUPP. I tweet some gambling stuff. But if you're in Maryland or Virginia, the area, I actually run playmaryland.com and playvirginia.com. Great place to get some information about legal sports bets and things like that. So, but otherwise, just come find me on Fight Night on Twitter. I'm usually hanging around making dumb jokes.
And then don't forget, at Dan Stupp, don't forget the extra N. Don't forget the extra N from my guy Dan Stupp there. And also, if you're finding yourself on the hiking trails in Virginia somewhere, I'm sure you'll see my guy Dan over there too, as he's an avid hiker as well. So yeah, very much like seeing some of those pictures that you post whenever you go out there in nature as well. Dan, once again, appreciate you coming on and doing this. Good luck on your bets and wagers tomorrow as well. Appreciate everybody that joined us live for the show. Anybody that's watching on the repeat as well, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Show my guy Dan some love as well with his Twitter handle in the description below. And yeah, good luck on your bets. I will see you guys again tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern on Instagram at MMALOTN for an IG live where I talk to you guys, going through as many of you guys as I can in 60 minutes, hearing what bets you guys have for tomorrow. Then 9 p.m. I'm going to be on with my guy, Narco Cop and Cheek Bay. We're going to be doing the Lambo Plays podcast where we give you guys a plus 500 or better for every single fight, seeing what we can uncover and hopefully make you guys some extra money with some plus money plays. And lastly, 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, Fight Day live chat right here on this channel, taking all last minute questions, comments, and concerns from the live chat. Ton of content, and we're 24 hours away from the fights. That's how your boy rolls. That's how we keep growing. Appreciate everybody checking out the show. Dan, once again, love you for coming on. Good luck on your wagers tomorrow. And let's say war Ignacio Bahamondes, although I shouldn't be saying the war word right now, considering everything going on in the world. But you guys know what I mean. Good luck on your bets tomorrow, folks.